Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and uncover a hidden, honestly astonishing history that's been sitting right under our noses in the archives. When we think of history, we usually picture those massive textbooks or sweeping, dramatic documentaries. But actually, sometimes the most incredible tales, and as you'll see today, the ones that spiral into deeply eerie, unsolved mysteries, are just tucked away in the mundane administrative paperwork of the past. So today, we're going to play archival detective and track down the unbelievable life of a vessel called the SS Nascopie. I mean, it literally sounds like the plot of a Hollywood thriller, right? How in the world did a lone, freezing Arctic supply ship manage to defeat a German U-boat and later on trigger a tense World War II standoff? Well, to find the answer to that, we actually have to look past the mainstream history books and dig directly into the primary sources. We're talking about the original ship's logs, casualty returns, and meteorological registers. You see, almost every ship leaves a paper trail. And by cross-referencing corporate records from the Hudson Bay Company, insurance files from Lloyd's of London, and these massive government archives, we can reconstruct a narrative that honestly defies logic. But, and I want you to keep this in the back of your mind, it's the sudden, inexplicable gaps in that exact paper trail that are truly terrifying.
Let's start at the beginning. Section 1, Birth of an Icebreaker.
So the Hudson's Bay Company built her to be an absolute tank of the sea. Constructed over in England at Wallsend-on-Tyne back in 1911, she definitely wasn't designed for luxury. She was built purely for survival. Picture this, incredibly thick 5/8-inch steel plates meant to just grind endlessly against unforgiving Arctic ice. She was outfitted with a specialized icebreaker bow, the latest Marconi wireless apparatus, and could hit speeds of 12 to 13 knots. The Nascopie was built to withstand the harshest, most isolated conditions on Earth. And her endurance right out of the gate was just staggering. In just her first 2 years and 9 months of operation, this incredible workhorse covered a mind-blowing 117,000 miles. According to the maritime records, she broke the record for carrying the largest shipment of nitrate to Brazil, and she transported soldiers, sailors, and Marines all over. She was clearly a vessel meant for heavy lifting. But, as it turns out, the world had much darker plans for her. Which brings us to Section 2, sinking a German U-boat. So after her maiden voyage in 1912, where she was immediately plunged into terrifyingly heavy weather and the brutal annual seal hunt, her sheer reliability caught the eye of the Allied powers. By 1916, she was officially chartered by the French government to run this highly dangerous fog-choked route, hauling crucial cargo from Russia all the way to Newfoundland. And here is where the archives reveal something absolutely spectacular. In 1916, while running that specific charter, this humble little supply ship actually encountered a German U-boat. And she didn't run. Nope. She turned her reinforced bow directly into the chaos, exchanged relentless gunfire, and sent the submarine plunging into the dark depths. I mean, a commercial icebreaker earning her stripes as a combat veteran of the First World War? That is a piece of history you just cannot make up. All right, moving on to Section 3, Conquering the Northwest Passage. For centuries, the Northwest Passage was this legendary, almost mythical dream that claimed the lives of countless explorers in those freezing waters. But in 1937, it was our working-class Nascopie that finally helped make it a reality. By sailing from the east and meeting up with the schooner Aklavik, which had sailed from the west into the Bellot Strait, they officially connected the route right at Fort Ross, a massive geographic milestone. And what's super interesting is that records of these incredible geographic feats aren't just important for maritime history, they're actually vital for modern science today. The daily meteorological logs kept by the Nascopie during these remote Arctic journeys captured really high-resolution climate data. Today, programs like the Climate Database Modernization Program are actively digitizing these exact logs to understand historical weather patterns. So her mundane, everyday entries are now completely crucial scientific data points. Let's shift gears a bit. Section 4, the Greenland Standoff. Okay, so during World War II, a ton of geopolitical tension revolved around a mineral called cryolite. This stuff was absolutely crucial for manufacturing aluminum, which, of course, was vital for building aircraft for the Allied war effort. Now, the world's primary supply of it was located in Iqaluit, Greenland. In May 1940, the Canadian government realized, hey, we need to secure this mine immediately. And who did they send? Our trusty veteran, the SS Nascopie.
But this diplomatic mission went completely sideways, resulting in a pretty fascinating historical misunderstanding. The U.S. State Department received these wildly exaggerated reports that the Nascopie was a warship carrying a Canadian troop landing force to occupy Greenland. But the Canadian reality, which is totally confirmed by the archives, was almost comical in comparison. It was just this aging supply ship carrying a few plainclothes Royal Canadian Mounted Police, a couple of mining engineers, and one artillery officer dressed in mufti, which just means civilian clothes.
Because of this total panic, the United States rushed their Coast Guard vessel, the Comanche, to intercept her. Later on, official American accounts would sort of brush the whole thing off with dismissive quotes like, "The Canadians merely proffered some supplies and docilely departed," which, paints a picture of swift, unquestioned American dominance, where the Canadians just politely tipped their hats and left. But the archival truth is far, far more intense.
The real story, found hidden in diaries and diplomatic cables, is that the Nascopie was aggressively blocked by the armed American Coast Guard and flat-out denied landing rights. She didn't docilely depart at all. She was actually trapped in the icy fjord, languishing in the shadow of American guns for weeks. And while the crew just sat there intense multilateral negotiations were happening behind the scenes between Canadian, American, British, and Greenlandic officials to figure out who was going to control the cryolit supply. The Nascopie was literally anchored right at the center of an international incident.
And finally, Section 5, preserved in the archives. The Nascopie managed to safely navigate through the rest of the Second World War, acting as a crucial lifeline to the North. But on July 21, 1947, her luck violently ran out. With a sickening crunch, she struck an uncharted reef near Cape Dorset, off the southern tip of Baffin Island. The ship was totally wrecked, sinking into the freezing depths. Thankfully, though, her extraordinary legacy did not sink with her. But here is where things get genuinely unsettling, because the Nascopie's archival legacy harbors an eerie, entirely unsolved mystery. She is actually the forgotten predecessor to the infamous ghost ship, the SS Bachamo. If you look closely at these exact archival repositories, you'll find that in 1917, after being commandeered by the British Admiralty, the Nascopie completely vanished from all official convoy records for 11 days in the freezing North Atlantic. When she finally reappeared in Halifax, her bewildered crew was utterly unable to account for that gap in time. Now, the UK National Archives hold roughly 113,000 deck logbooks under the classification ADM 53. Yet, the heavily sealed Board of Admiralty inquiry for the Nascopie's vanishing, which was quietly filed away under ADM 116, simply lists her log as recovered and damaged condition, entries illegible for the relevant period. It gets even more chilling when you cross-reference this against underwriting notes at Lloyd's of London held at the Guildhall Library. They flagged the ship under a super rare circumstance undetermined classification, a code used fewer than 9 times in the insurer's entire wartime record. Think about that. While researchers usually use these massive surveys to extract straightforward climate data, some records just absolutely defy explanation. The only surviving account of those 11 missing days comes from the first mate's private diary, which was acquired by the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic in Halifax back in 1988. This continuous daily record suddenly skips 11 days without a single blank page and then just resumes mid-sentence in a completely different ink. And its final pre-gap entry? It ends with one chilling sensory detail. The sea here is the wrong color, underlined twice and never elaborated upon. The SS Nascopie reminds us that history isn't just dry data. It is full of real suspense and dread. I mean, if a seemingly ordinary icebreaker can leave behind a trail of U-boat battles, Arctic conquests, tense diplomatic standoffs, and a terrifying 11-day erasure from reality, what other eerie, world-altering mysteries are quietly sitting in boxes at the archives right now, just waiting for us to open them? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it changes the way you look at the chilling depths of our past.